Live, local, now.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of WIS News at 5. I'm Judy Gadsden.
And I'm Greg Adeline. Right now, family, friends, and colleagues are gathering to honor the life of Cayce Police Officer Drew Barr.
Officer Barr was killed in the line of duty very early on Sunday morning while responding to a domestic violence call.
Now, many who knew Officer Barr say that he was married to his career of helping and serving his community. The procession for Officer Barr, meanwhile, is leaving Batesburg-Leesville High School and will head nearly 9 miles down Highway 391 to Mount Ebal Baptist Church. That is where we are taking a look right now. As you can see, preparations underway for that ceremony. Pianist there playing some music as those who are going to be remembering Officer Barr will head in, take their seats, and remember this man who dedicated his life to service. Absolutely,
Greg. As all of our viewers know, we have covered what we have learned about the events that unfold very early on Sunday morning. Much more to learn about the investigation in the days and weeks ahead. But today, the focus is solely on honoring his life, which by all accounts, from everyone we have talked to who had the pleasure of knowing him, who had the pleasure of working with him, who even knew him as a little boy growing up, said that he always had a heart of service.
Certainly did, even from very young age. Even before he got on the police force totally, he was somebody who had set out that this is what he was going to do. This was his life's purpose. We've heard many stories come in about just the different moments and the different snapshots of this man who gave his life in the line of duty. As the crowd rises there to their feet, let's listen in quickly.
We are gathered here today to worship God and to celebrate the life of Officer Roy Andrew Barr, Jr. Or to those of us who knew him, he was just Drew. I know I speak for the family when I express appreciation for your prayers and support of them at this time. To you, the family, who mourn your loss, we especially offer our deep and sincere sympathy. Many of you here are family. There are those of you who watched Drew grow up in this community. Some of you were school or church friends. Some of you may have even been a teacher along the way. Others of you served alongside Drew as a volunteer firefighter, and still others have served with him as an EMT or in law enforcement. And there are still others of you here today who don't have a personal connection to Drew, but you're here to support his family and to honor him. I want you to know you're all welcome here today. If you knew Drew, you would know that he loved people, and he would be happy to see his friends and his family all come together, and he would want each of you to feel like you belong here today. Today, I want us to focus not so much on what we've lost, but on what we gained because Drew was a part of our lives. Today, I want us to focus on the hope that we have in Jesus Christ. We are here because we have hope, not hope with a question mark, but hope with an exclamation point. We're here to acknowledge that death is not a friend, but an enemy. It is an enemy of God and of us. An enemy because it destroys life that is in contrast to God, the creator and author of life. We are here to praise Jesus Christ, the conqueror of our ancient enemy. Our hearts and minds are riveted only on the one who has said, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies." The truth is that Drew's with Jesus today. He is more alive today than he ever was on this earth. It is that truth that will help us as we walk through these times of grief.
This 28-year-old superhero has shown me what faith truly is. We have talked to a lot of people about Drew, and they've all said the same thing, that he loved to serve and he believed in God. When I met this young man, I saw passion in his eyes. Well, actually, at first, excuse my expression, Pastor, I saw this shit-eating grin on his face. But I looked into his eyes, and I shook his hand, and he presented this confidence and care that I had not felt in a long time.
Drew loved being a member of the Cayce Department of Public Safety. He loved his time in the fire department. He loved his time serving on the road. And he loved each and every one of you. I agree with the chief that Drew would want to encourage you to do good and set the example and find strength in the days, weeks, and months that come. Drew loved you, and I love you too, everyone at Cayce and everyone that works in public safety. I'm honored to have been given the opportunity to place your badge, nameplate, chevrons, and ribbons on your uniform yesterday. I will always cherish the slice of privacy we shared while I made the final adjustments. Your uniform is neat. Your brothers and sisters are here, and you are ready for your last ride.
Coming back and serving, and talked about their friendship and just the camaraderie that they had and the bond that they had, and detailing just that moment even before today, where they were able to share that time.
He did in a number of the speakers. It was not a very long program, but it was so powerful and so moving. And another story that Officer Antley shared was about one instance where Officer Barr was responding to a pregnant woman who was at her home on the floor in full distress, as he described it, and he said he had no idea what to do, but that Drew Barr jumped into action, and within a matter of minutes, he had a second patient on his hands, a beautiful baby boy, and he said that Officer Barr knew exactly what to do, and that he just moved in his gifts and in his call to service, and that was the blessing that everyone benefited from, for those who got to know him and those who worked with him.
Officer Barr earning a Medal of Valor and Purple Heart at the Criminal Justice Academy, and once again saying, once he graduated, talking about the gratitude that he had to be able to serve, but said that he's not a hero, but he saw a few inside that Criminal Justice Academy. So he had a deep respect for the profession. He knew what it meant to wear the uniform and to be able to serve the public. And so this was somebody who not only lived that calling, but at 27 years old, was prepared to pay the ultimate sacrifice in that career. Somebody had said during this memorial that he knew the high cost, he knew the steep cost, he knew that it ultimately could cost him his life, but he took it anyway. Let's listen in.
being at the hospital and not knowing what he would say to his mother. The procession is taking off now, so we'll again take a moment to allow you all, in whatever way you wish, to pay your respects.
Officer Drew Barr carried away in a Minetta fire engine, place where he served, by his brothers in blue, as onlookers lined the route there. Many from around the community. Judy, you mentioned some of these who never met Officer Barr, but who were certainly not only affected by the tragedy of what happened, but who were deeply moved by the accounts of the life of service that he lived, the type of life that he lived, somebody who didn't leave a legacy, but who lived a legacy, as was said from the podium just moments ago. Looking at the canine unit there, at least momentarily, interesting, the night after Officer Barr died, at the memorial site outside the Cayce Department of Public Safety, a group of women, the canine godmothers, met there. This is a group of women who care for all of the canines in local law enforcement, whether it be RCSD or the Lexington Sheriff's Department and some of these local police departments. They care deeply about these canines who are just incredible with the duties that they carry out every day on the job. And the bond that an officer shares with his dog is one that I don't think we can fully explain. They are partners. They become, in some ways, one and the same. You know, they're on the same page, they're on the same wavelength as they go out on each and every one of these calls. The canine godmothers, though, I will say, were among the very first to show up there. And they brought a couple of PTSD support dogs for anybody in the community who wanted to come out and pay their respects and maybe who just needed a moment with the dog.
When we hear conversations about community policing, essentially those relationships are built on trust. And trust is not built overnight. It takes time and it requires an investment. And so you make that investment by spending time and by getting to know the people in the community that you serve. And we've heard so many examples of how he did exactly that. And I think, Greg, when we learned that he was just 27 years old, I think about, you know, for some of us it takes a long time to figure out what your purpose is in life, you know, and some of us might have an idea of what our purpose is, but we might not have an obedient spirit about answering that call. But he knew what his purpose was, and he had an obedient spirit in responding to that call in so many incredible ways. Again, at just 27 years old. And so, as our community comes together, that is just something to reflect on, to appreciate, and to honor.
Lexington police weighing in on Twitter, saying that this is several days ago, said that it's been a heartbreaking day. This was on Sunday for not only the family of Officer Barr, but Cayce PD, law enforcement throughout the area, and that their canine officers honored the service of Officer Barr by leaving LPD canine patch and flag at the memorial outside of CPD, and that memorial we saw continue to grow as we listen in here.
he lived his legacy, and that he spent his life protecting the innocent and standing for justice.
All of those attributes celebrated today and will not be forgotten here in this community as we watch some of those first responder helicopters making their way off into the evening in Batesburg, Leesville, honoring the life of a tremendous public servant gone too soon.
Absolutely, Greg. I think we'll close it out with words that were shared on behalf of his mother, saying that she had so many reasons to be proud of the man that he became, but she and his father were proudest to call him their son. And just one closing thought for all of us to stay encouraged tonight. Broken things can become blessed things if we let God do the mending.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Good night.